The morning began like any other, but by midday, the nation was gripped by a sense of historic change. News alerts flashed across screens, and conversations everywhere turned to a single stunning event. The Supreme Court struck down a core pillar of President Trump's economic agenda, ruling his sweeping use of emergency powers to impose tariffs was an overreach. The decision was delivered with gravity, sending a clear message that even the highest office in the land must answer to the Constitution. The decision stunned Washington, Wall Street, and Main Streets nationwide. Politicians scrambled to respond while investors and ordinary citizens tried to make sense of what it all meant for their futures. Phones rang off the hook in boardrooms and government offices as business leaders scrambled to understand the fallout. Uncertainty rippled through every sector, from finance to manufacturing. Would they get their money back? Companies and individuals, who had paid millions in tariffs, wondered if relief was on the horizon, or if new legal battles were just beginning. Industries shielded by tariffs now faced uncertainty. Workers worried about their jobs, and business owners questioned how to adapt to a rapidly changing landscape. The ruling drew a firm line, limiting presidential power and raising urgent questions about the balance between Congress and the executive. The separation of powers, a foundational principle, was suddenly front and center in the national conversation. This wasn't just about economics, it was about the structure of American government. The decision forced the country to reconsider how much authority any president should wield, especially in times of crisis. The justices made clear, the president's authority has limits. No matter the urgency, the rule of law stands above all, and the checks and balances of democracy must be preserved. As the nation digests the news, one thing is certain, the aftershocks will shape policy and politics for years. Every branch of government and every citizen will feel the impact of this landmark decision. The debate over executive power is far from over. In courtrooms, on talk shows, and in the halls of Congress, the conversation has only just begun. The Supreme Court's thunderclap will echo for generations, reminding America that the lines drawn by the Constitution are not easily erased. To fully grasp today's Supreme Court decision, it's important to understand what tariffs are and why they became such a major issue during the Trump administration. Let's break down the basics and the motivations behind these controversial policies. Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on goods that are brought into the country from abroad. By making foreign products more expensive, tariffs are designed to encourage Americans to buy products made in the U.S., supporting domestic industries and workers. This can affect everything from electronics to clothing, and even groceries. President Trump made tariffs a cornerstone of his America First agenda. He argued that the U.S. was losing out in global trade, especially with China, and that tough action was needed to reduce the trade deficit and bring manufacturing jobs back to American soil. His administration believed tariffs would level the playing field for American businesses. But Trump's use of tariffs went beyond economics. He linked them to national security, declaring a national emergency to address crises like the fentanyl epidemic and illegal border crossings. To justify sweeping action, he invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, known as IEPA, a law typically reserved for foreign threats, not trade disputes. Trump often described tariffs as a reciprocal tax, insisting that if other countries impose barriers on American goods, the U.S. should respond in kind. He argued this approach would force trading partners to negotiate fairer deals and respect American interests. This strategy led to a sweeping 10% tariff on a wide range of imports, affecting products from dozens of countries and raising prices for many American businesses and consumers. In particular, Trump imposed a specific 10% duty on all goods coming from China, targeting everything from electronics to toys, and escalating tensions between the world's two largest economies. No president before Trump had ever used IEPA to impose tariffs in this way. It was a bold and unprecedented move, sparking heated debate among legal scholars, economists, and politicians about the limits of presidential power. Supporters praised the tariffs as a way to protect American jobs, revive struggling industries, and push back against unfair trade practices by foreign governments. Critics, however, warned that these actions destabilize global markets, hurt American consumers with higher prices, and raise serious constitutional questions about the president's emergency powers. The Supreme Court's ruling today was a direct response to this unprecedented use of emergency authority, weighing the balance between national security and the rule of law. The stakes were enormous, touching on economic sovereignty, national security, and the fundamental limits of presidential authority in times of crisis. Today, the court drew a clear line, setting a new precedent for how far a president can go in using emergency powers to shape economic policy. The era of tariffs imposed by emergency decree has come to an end, marking a turning point in the balance of power between the White House and the courts. The legal fight over Trump's tariffs began in the lower courts, setting off a complex and high-stakes battle that would ultimately test the limits of presidential power. Businesses and trade groups, deeply concerned about the economic impact, challenged the president's authority to impose sweeping tariffs under emergency powers. In May 2025, after months of heated arguments and mounting public attention, federal judges ruled that several of the tariffs exceeded the powers granted by Congress under emergency law, raising questions about the scope of executive authority. The administration, determined to defend its actions, quickly appealed the decision. As the legal process played out, the tariffs were temporarily reinstated, leaving businesses and consumers in a state of uncertainty. The case soon escalated to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. In August, the court struck down key tariffs, declaring that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, known as IEPA, was never intended to justify such broad and far-reaching action by the executive branch. The court gave the administration until October to file an appeal, setting the stage for a dramatic showdown at the nation's highest court. The Justice Department wasted no time, swiftly taking the fight to the Supreme Court and arguing that the president's emergency powers were essential for national security and economic stability. In a surprise move that caught many observers off guard, the justices issued their decision a full day before scheduled arguments, signaling the urgency and conviction behind their ruling. The long legal journey ended with a historic and precedent-setting ruling. The president's emergency powers, while significant, are not without limits and must be exercised within the boundaries set by Congress. The Supreme Court's decision was swift, clear, and final, bringing an end to years of legal uncertainty and debate. The battle over tariffs had reached its ultimate conclusion, leaving both supporters and critics to reflect on the far-reaching implications for future presidents and the balance of power. Now, as the nation absorbs the consequences of this landmark decision, Americans everywhere are left to consider what it means for the country's economy, its leadership, and the rule of law. At the core was a question: how much power does the president really have? Trump's lawyers argued IEPA gave him broad authority in emergencies. Opponents said only Congress can impose sweeping tariffs. The major questions doctrine became central. Big economic moves need clear congressional approval. The Supreme Court agreed. Congress never gave the president power to unilaterally rewrite trade law through emergency declarations. The justices ruled the president had overstepped, reaffirming the separation of powers. The Supreme Court's decision was sweeping but targeted, struck down tariffs on China and Mexico tied to the fentanyl crisis, the 10% universal tariff, and duties on low-value Chinese imports. The court rejected using public health emergencies to justify broad economic penalties. But not all tariffs vanished. Trump's steel, aluminum, and auto tariffs imposed under different laws remain. The result: a fragmented trade landscape. Some industries get relief, others see no change. The legal battle over tariffs isn't over, but the rules have changed. The economic stakes are huge. Billions in tariffs, now ruled illegal, were collected by the Treasury. Companies may seek massive refunds, creating a logistical and financial headache for the government. For consumers, prices on imported goods could fall, offering relief after years of inflation. But U.S. industries once protected by tariffs now face tougher competition and possible job losses. The decision creates winners and losers. Some benefit from lower prices, others brace for hardship. The federal budget could take a hit if refunds are ordered. The full impact will take months to unfold. The Supreme Court's ruling has upended the economic landscape. America is bracing for the fallout. The reaction was immediate and polarized. President Trump condemned the ruling as a partisan attack. His supporters called it judicial overreach. Legally, the Supreme Court's word is final. The invalidated tariffs are gone. The White House faces the challenge of processing refunds and finding new ways to pursue its trade agenda. The decision is a landmark for American democracy, reasserting the judiciary's role in checking executive power. For decades, presidential authority has grown. Today, the court pushed back. The message: even in emergencies, the president's power has limits set by Congress. The economic and political landscape is changed, and the debate over executive power is reignited. The Supreme Court's line in the sand will shape future presidencies. In America, no branch rules alone, and that principle just got a powerful new precedent.